So I think our company has a bit of an interesting vantage point on what's going on in the U.S. economy. In addition to our utility in Florida, where we're one of the largest utilities in the United States, we serve about half of the folks in Florida. We also have power generation facilities in 26 other states, and we're the second largest generator of power in the country from a capacity standpoint. So let me start from a macro perspective and give you a little feedback on what we're seeing there. And so one of the measures we look at, of course, would be total power production. And that's pretty correlated with economic activity. Clearly, after falling dramatically in 2008 and 2009, we've seen total electricity production start to come back. It's been rising steadily, but frankly at a slow rate. Just to give you a couple data points, or at least one data point. December of 2010, electrical generation was up 3.1% relative to the prior year. Now, with that, having said that, its overall demand for electricity is nowhere near where our industry peaked in 2007. So in some regards, this is a good news, bad news story. If you think about it from a consumer standpoint, the combination of weak demand, plentiful natural gas, and an abundant supply of power, prices for electricity, our fuel that we use, and thanks to some of our suppliers like Jeff's company, even our equipment that we buy has come down in price some. So it's really resulted in meaningful savings for consumers. Hopefully that'll offset what they're seeing at the gas pump these days. But at the same time, lower demand is causing overall slower growth in our electric power sector. Now, one thing about our sector is we have very long lead times in terms of building for the future. So our industry continues to invest and is investing pretty significantly. I only have data for the shareholder-owned utilities. Of course, there's some other municipals and co-ops in the industry, but the shareholder-owned utilities are expecting to invest $85 billion this year in new CapEx. That's hot off the press number we just got yesterday. And those investments will be in things like new power plants, new transmission, renewable generation, smart grid technology, and other upgrades to the nation's electrical system. All of this will create jobs and really increase our economic competitiveness in the years ahead. But really with robust demand that but if we had demand at where we were in the 07 kind of time frame, we could invest more, is what I'm really trying to say. And with a little more clarity on some of the in the regulatory picture in regard to areas like transmission, nuclear, clean energy, things of that sort, the industry really does have the wherewithal to invest a lot more and is prepared to do so. So that's kind of the macro perspective. From a Florida perspective, what we're seeing is kind of a mixed read at this point. Our state clearly has bottomed and is starting to improve. We were one of the first states into the recession and most likely are going to be one of the last ones out. Our unemployment rate is still high, 12%. But from a utility standpoint, we saw for the first time in 3 years significant customer growth last year, and that growth has been gradually accelerating as we went through the year and what we've seen so far this year. We added approximately 30,000 customers last year, and we're basically every month looking at that just gradually going up. So that's a pretty good sign for what's going on in Florida. But we see very, very little improvement in the home construction market. And as a utility, we see that early on because we have to invest in facilities whenever developers want to build new housing developments and things of that sort. So while the worst is clearly behind us, or at least seems to be behind us, we still have some distance to travel to get back to what I would consider to be normal growth for our business. I know you're interested in clean energy, so I'll just comment on that for a second. On a national front, we saw nobody was banging at our door, nobody was listening to our phone calls for quite a while and selling more renewable power. The fourth quarter of last year, we picked up a lot of orders, and we're seeing that momentum continue so far this year. So we're cautiously optimistic about that, but we're still nowhere near the rate that we were hoping to be at this point in time, and nowhere near the rate that we were at, let's say, back in 2007 or something like that. Again, there's a bit of a good news story there. Is our suppliers have developed, continue to invest in the technology. Wind power especially is getting to be even more competitive, lower cost. We capture more wind and that sort of thing. So wind is very, very competitive with all other forms of electricity generation at this point. And we're seeing a very similar story on the solar side, although solar still has a ways to go. So overall, we're cautiously optimistic, but we still have a ways to go. And hopefully through the work of this great council, we'll keep jobs growing and keep the economy growing.
Great, Luke.